through this planning bill, help us understand what it's for and who it is?
We do, Mr. Vice Chairman. Brandon Gephardt, Director Gephardt from Water Development Commission is in the waiting room.
Where are you seeing that? I don't see it.
I just happen to know.
There you have it.
Crystal ball.
Right, Ryan can bring me in.
Mr. Vice Chairman, you are live on YouTube, and I will go ahead and bring in Mr. Gebhardt from the waiting room.
If you would please, and then we'll see if there's anybody else with him. Can you show me who's in the waiting room by chance? Ryan. Hi, Brandon.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Is there, hi, Clark. Is there anybody that's that you're expecting to join you?
Mr. Vice.
Okay. So let's go ahead and committee, just before we do roll call, Chairman Nicholas is in another meeting. He should be joining us. If we don't get done, we'll hold those votes open for him to complete. So let's do roll call if we could.
Representative Kinner.
Here.
Representative Schwartz.
Here.
Representative Simpson.
Here.
Representative Stiff.
Here.
Representative Walters.
Here.
Chairman Nicholas.
Used.
And Vice Chairman Larson.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Committee members of the public, we're going to take up Senate File 37, which is the Omnibus Water Planning Bill. And we have with us today Director Gephardt, and if we could, from Water Development Commission, if you could maybe just explain to us, educate us a little on what this bill does, why it's separate from the other omnibus water bill historically, and then committee, we're not going to look at putting in or pulling out. We're just going to be looking at approving or not approving moving it forward, as you know. Okay, Mr. Gephardt, bless your heart. It's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the committee. The first question I think I heard is, why is this bill separate than the construction bill? We had the same question just a few minutes ago, and I don't know that I have a good answer to that. This has been the way it's always been done, but these are different types of projects. These are our planning projects. And of course, in the construction bill, those are the actual construction projects. We've come to maybe a couple of assumptions as to why it's been done. One would be that they are different types of projects. The bill structure itself is considerably different. And then maybe the thought that if something were to hold one of these bills up, that it may not impact the other bill, may be part of the reason for that. And at the time that these were started, I just got to note that different entities had these different bills when there were two different entities. At one time, there was what was called DPAD, and they had the construction bill, and the Water Development Commission had the planning bill. And then over time, I think these two entities merged, and the bills remained separate, but the entity became one. So that might provide a little background for that, Representative Larson.
Thank you.
I will jump right in. I did send an email. You guys may have just received it. It's our typical e-blue book. I will point out that in that blue book, I know that there are some newer legislators that are asking questions, but within this book are different tabs, and under tab A is a description of the program. It's a 1,000-foot view of the program. Tab B is the financial projections that we use to determine the funding available each year when we start looking at these projects and what we're going to request for funding. And then in this instance, tab C through T are individual projects that are listed on these summary sheets and in the bill. There's the director's recommendation, but it provides a little bit of background of the project and a description of each of these projects. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll try to be brief and work off the blue sheet, the spreadsheet that is page 2 of the PDF. And in this block, the first block is the level 1 projects under new development. These would be projects out of our water development account 1. These projects have been vetted through beginning in May when we first get an application with the Select Water Committee and the Water Development Commission. All of these projects, we have selected consultants. They are waiting for the bill to become law, and then we will contract with those selected consultants to perform the work at the appropriate time. The first block, as I mentioned, for new development, we've got 1 watershed study, 4 master plans, the Lake Hattie Reservoir Full Utilization Study, and then the UW Water Research Program. That's our annual water research program. Total requested funding for this year, level 1 new development, is $1,359,454. I will pause if there are any questions or if you'd like me to explain anything further.
Questions from the committee? Okay, proceed, please.
Mr. Chairman, the next block are level 2 projects from Water Development Account 1, our new development account. Bighorn Regional Transmission, the Byron Rural Water Supply Project, the Gillette Water System Improvement Projects, and the Little Snake River Valley Water Supply Phase 2 project. Total requested appropriation for level 2 projects is $586,000. And I'll pause again.
Yeah, I'm just curious on the Gillette water system. Is that connected to the Madison project at all, or is that irrigation?
Mr. Chairman, it's not irrigation. It's not associated with the Madison pipeline. This project is looking at incorporating one of the subdivisions, if you will, into their system and what kind of piping would be needed, and then looking at some of the system storage.
Thank you. Proceed.
The next block of projects, as we discussed earlier, the Lander ditches was taken out of this block. This is our level 1 rehab. So we have the Highland Irrigation District Master Plan remaining in this block. And the total request for count 2 is $192,000. Any questions on that block?
Representative Stimson.
Director Gephardt, would you just take a minute, just real quickly brief? I don't think this committee is aware that you significantly increased your fees to go into a water study program. Would you quickly explain that to us, what we've done there?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Representative Simpson, through the interim, we were asked to evaluate I assume you're talking application fees?
Yes.
We were asked to evaluate our application fees. And the way we're structured right now is we require a $1,000 application fee to enter into our program for any planning study. And through the interim, we had some discussions, and what we proposed to Select Water Committee at that time was to continue with our $1,000 application fee, but then to use an existing statute that would raise an additional reimbursement, or it's essentially an additional application fee. So for small entities, whether they're a municipality or an irrigation district, for the smaller entities, I believe we went to another $1,000, so $2,000 total for small, $3,000 $3,000 total application fee for medium group, and then the large groups increased to $4,000, I believe. That's correct. And that would be taken up through our rules and criteria, which we'll discuss that in our August meeting. So these changes won't occur until next year. And we do not require any legislation for that. We'll handle it through our rules and operation criteria.
So when you refer to the 4,000 or the 3,000, that's the sum total. That would be the, okay, thank you.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Representative Stith, then I've got you, Andy.
Mr. Vice Chair, Director Gephardt, I just don't know as much about water as I should. Are any of these projects, but what I read in the news, we had the collapse of the tunnel in Goshen County, the irrigation district, and they found a fix for that. Are any of these projects related to making sure we don't have a similar, catastrophic failures in our system in the future? Or is it just completely different topic? I understand the Bureau of Reclamation is involved with that other tunnel, and that's not necessarily under state's jurisdiction, but I wanted to ask you if the current focus has anything to do with preventing catastrophic collapses.
Director Gephardt.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Stith, I would say that a large majority of our studies are intended to accomplish just that. The intent of these studies is to go out and find deficiencies. We look at a lot of aging infrastructure, both in municipalities and irrigation districts. So I would say that these studies that is the main intent, is to go identify those before they become an emergency.
Representative Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Mr. Gephardt, with the fees, the first part of the question is, what do they generate, or do you anticipate they'll generate in a year? But also, how do you allocate them? I assume they go into one of the water fund accounts. How do you determine which account they go to?
Director.
Mr. Vice Chairman, Representative Schwartz, statutorily, those application fees go into Water Development Account 1. And typically they have not generated significant revenues. Philosophically, we don't anticipate that they will, or that we rely on those to create large revenues. We value the studies enough that if there's money to be spent, we're hoping that they're going to spend that money on construction.
Thank you. I've been on approach too long. I'm always looking to see how much money we're getting. I can't help it. I do have, can I make another question, Mr. Vice Chair, that's not quite related? So going through what you sent us, and it's got a lot of information in it, and it's got some maps, but for those of us who aren't familiar with water projects, it would be helpful for me to have one map of the state roughly that shows where all these projects are, because sometimes I just can't tell where individual projects are located. It would be handy.
And the question there was what?
Could you do that?
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chairman, Representative Schwartz, we will look at that. We for this year's purposes, we do list the counties that each of these projects are in, but we will look at including a map of all the projects that we're presenting each year.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the director? Okay, Director, anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the last portion are project amendments. These are amendments to existing projects. The majority of these are time extension only. Fontenelle, Glendo, Clear Creek Storage, Knowood River, these are all dealing with dams and reservoirs. As you know, these projects do take time. We're just extending reversion dates on already appropriated funds for those three projects. But the most significant one is the LaPrelle Irrigation District. And as Representative Stith kind of indicated with the Goshen project, this falls in a similar vein. We're almost to an emergency situation with LaPrelle. Through our studies, we've determined that the LaPrelle Dam has reached its useful life. It's under state engineer orders, dam safety orders to maintain a reduced storage level because of that. This dam is located upstream of the Ayers Bridge and I-25 in the town of Douglas. Failure of this dam is estimated to be catastrophic failure. And so there is a real urgency to evaluate this. And so we've been evaluating this. We've had prior appropriations. What we're requesting, $4.3 million. This year is to continue with that. This will take us into the design and the permitting to rehabilitate or replace this dam. I will also mention that we're using this $4.3 million to try to secure some outside and federal funding for the project. When we get to construction, this is going to be a very large price tag that we currently don't have the funds for. So we're starting the process of looking for other funding sources to help us address this before it becomes a failure situation where we're picking up pieces rather than addressing it in rehab.
And you're transferring that from water one to water two solely because you didn't have the funds in that account to cover it?
That is correct. We had the funds in account one, so we're asking to transfer that to account two.
So on any of these extensions, is there any of them that the work hasn't begun?
No, Mr. Chairman, all the work is going, the case of all four of these were in some sort of a permitting or continuation of existing projects and trying to get towards construction on those.
Okay. Further discussion, Representative Schwartz.
Thank you. So on the Highland Hanover, I noticed the reversion date was 2023 instead of 2024, which the others were. Is there, I assume there's a reason for that?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I think what's going on with that one, that might be part of an amendment that is tied up with, I think, in the LaPrelle situation. I believe that this is a different project. If I'm not mistaken, there was a 2018 appropriation for Highland. And I think this is a new appropriation. So under, in page 5 of the bill, that should be, I'll look, but the appropriation should be 2024. Yeah, on page 4, actually, Mr. Chairman, under section 3, the new project, Highland Irrigation District, is a reversion date of 2024. There was a prior appropriation that is part of the language for the LaPrelle amendment that has a reversion date of 2023. And that's a prior project that is still on schedule to complete in that time.
Okay, Representative Kinner.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I wonder if we could have Director Gebhardt flip to the fiscal note and kind of take a quick walk over that. I see the transfer of the 4.3 from water 1 to water 2, but there's a funds for 22 and then funds for 23. And I guess my question would be, does that exceed this biennium, or is that just the way that's recorded?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Kinner, the fiscal note is our estimation of how we will spend the appropriations from this bill. So we're anticipating that we'll spend a certain amount this year, a certain amount of the appropriation will be next year, and then the last of the appropriation will be in the final year. So we're spreading this appropriation over 3 years is what we're actually doing with that. It does not increase what we're asking for. It's just how we anticipate spending that appropriation.
Okay. Thank you.
Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Gebhardt, if you could get back to us with the answer on the question I'm about to ask, but after the transfers that take place in the construction bill and then the funding spent or the amount spent in this bill, I'd just be curious to know what is left in water 1, water 2, and water 3. Like I said, I don't need that information right now. Just trying to track that through. We start with about 27 million, 27.5 million in water 1, 6.9 in water 2, but then we in the projects bill we make that $7.5 million transfer, and so just trying to track it all a little bit.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I do have that information here already.
Perfect.
So we anticipate that after both of these transfers and all of the projects are taken out, that at the end of the biennium, assuming that our revenues don't change, that we would end up with about 9.1 million in account 1. We would end up with a balance of about $1 million in account 2. And I get, if you want exact numbers, I've got those too.
Close enough. That's perfect.
And then account 3, which we have not requested any funding this year, we have a balance of about just shy of 25 million in the dam and reservoir account. So
Okay.
to recap, 9.1, account 1 million in account 2, and 25 million in account 3.
Questions, Representative Stith? You're muted, Clark.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. For Director Gephardt, those, the numbers you just gave us is the anticipated balance as of June 30th of 2022. Is that correct? If everything stays equal?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that is correct. Once the money is appropriated, it would be the remaining balances in those accounts.
Further questions? Further comments, Director?
Mr. Chairman, I really appreciate your guys' efforts. I know that I've been trying to track and see when these meetings are. I don't know how you guys can keep up, but you guys are all doing a great job, and I appreciate your efforts.
Representative Kinner.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I would move due pass.
Do we have a second? Got a second from Simpson. Okay, roll call, Ryan. Any further discussion before do roll call?
Well, just a footnote for us that Majority Floor Leader Summers has indicated he'd like to put this one on the cow when we get back. So we got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's why we're trying to push it along. So any public comment waiting out there for us, Ryan?
Question on the bill.
Go ahead, roll call.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, you're voting on Senate File 37, engrossed omnibus water bill planning. Representative Kinner.
Aye.
Representative Schwartz.
Aye.
Representative Simpson.
Aye.
Representative Stith.
Aye.
Representative Walters.
Aye.
Chairman Nicholas.
Excused.
And Vice Chairman Larson.
Aye. Thank you, Director Gephardt.
Thank you all.
So have we got time to get through House Bill 52? Do we have anybody out there waiting on to present this to us, Ryan?
Yeah, Mr. Vice Chairman, Chairman Eklund is in the waiting room. I'll let him in now.
Let's bring him in, get it done. Hi, Chairman Eklund. You're muted. There you go.
And committee, hello, people. This is a continuation of that bill that we passed, I believe it was last year or the year before. It's a protein enhancement, trying to use Wyoming meat products in our school system. The meat is a donation, and we've directed the Department of Education to allocate $25,000 in their funding to match funding for just the processing part of the animals. So it'd be a 1-to-1 match. Someone else would pick up the other part, and then the meat would go into whichever school system it was donated to. And I'd stand for questions. That's pretty brief, but.
Representative Schwartz, then Clark.
Thank you. May I make a comment first, Mr. Vice Chair?
Let's go with questions first, please.
Well, okay. I was remembering there was that bill, Chairman Eklund, but I couldn't find it in the statute that we did 2 years ago. I remember it was in the Jonah building when we did it.
It'd be, well, it says 20, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
It was in the 2020 session laws, chapter 80, section 2, section 206, and I don't know where it would be in the statutes actually, but that's what I have here.
I didn't think to look in the enrolled acts. I'll find it. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Stiff?
Mr. Vice Chairman, for Chairman Eklund, it's my understanding that the school funding formula model does not have any funding for food. Is that why this $25,000 is coming out of general fund instead of school foundation program?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
so backing up to Representative Schwartz's question, was 2017 Wyoming Session Laws, Chapter 137. And then we added to it, the other one was. And then to get to Representative Stith's, I do not believe it comes, well, it kind of comes out of general fund indirectly, but it comes out of the Department of Education's allocated budget. And thus far, they've never used the full 25,000. They're usually left with about $12,000, $13,000 in it after donations for match to match donations for processed meat is paid for. Does that make sense?
So then, Chairman Eklund, if that's the case, how much is left in that fund, and could we just fund it back up to 25,000?
Mr. Chairman, I think we've directed them to maintain the 25,000, but I think it's their discretion. Yeah, at their discretion, they can put the 13,000 left over into it and have money ready somehow. Shuffle it around, I think.
Representative Walters?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think we're appropriating 25,000. I think we're saying they are not allowed to spend any more than 25,000 on this program. And it's money that's already within their existing budget. So we're just giving them the authority to use it for this purpose, not to exceed 25,000. Regardless of how much is left there, it's just not to exceed, is the way I read it, and the way I read 2017 session laws when I go back and look at those just now. And from what I can tell, this bill is almost verbatim what was in the 2017 session laws for the pilot program. I didn't do a word for word check, but a quick summary of it. It looks very, very similar to almost identical.
Is that the way you're understanding it, Chairman Eklund?
Mr. Chairman, yes. A question I would have while we're on that subject, should I have brought it? I believe I should have brought it to appropriations because it generally, okay. To be on the safe side, we did.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Okay. Motion on the bill?
Do pass?
You pass
Yeah.
by
Do
Schwartz,
pass.
second by Kinner. Any further discussion before we do roll call?
Question on the bill?
Okay, Ryan?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, you're voting on House Bill 52, Wyoming School Protein Enhancement Project. Representative Kinner.
Aye.
Representative Schwartz.
Aye.
Representative Simpson.
Aye.
Representative Stiff.
Aye.
Representative Walters.
Aye.
Chairman Nicholas.
Aye.
And Vice Chairman Larson.
Aye.
7-0, Mr. Chairman.
And Chairman Nicholas, we've held the vote open for you on the water planning bill.
Was it a due pass or were there any amendments?
You pass, we just approved the funding.
Okay, aye.
Okay. Anything else, committee, before we go back? I think we got 49 coming up this afternoon. Okay. Good job this morning.
Thanks, Lloyd.
We're done.